I was about 14 or 15, and I changed trumpet teachers because it was just time. I had studied with Mr. Herring, and he had taken me as far as he could. But I found a guy whose name was Tony Marcione. His son is Nick Marcione, another great trumpet player who's first call guy in New York now in all the bands. Great lead player, great jazz player, plays everything on the trumpet. And Tony was strictly a classical player, but he went to school with all the jazz guys at this Massbaum Tech that I was talking about. So he was a real kind of hip guy, hung out with all the jazz musicians. So he was perfect. He taught Lee Morgan, even though they were the same age. He was a fantastic technician on the trumpet and played with a lot of heart and soul. So I started studying with him, and he got me into some other records, Dizzy Gillespie, with Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins, and I studied with a guy also, not studied, but we took lessons with a guy named Evan Solot, who eventually started the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. And Evan was a big transcriber. So he kind of taught me some things about how to transcribe, just little simple things to learn, how to slow down the record, how to leave out certain notes if you can't figure out something. Was like a puzzle together, just find the outlines, things like that. So I started to also transcribe solos. And that was a big part of my development when I become around 14 or 15. And my advice towards that was, or my intent towards that was to not transcribe only one person. By then I had a pretty wide interest in different trumpet players. And I was smart enough during that time to not concentrate on one person as far as transcriptions. I liked Kenny Durham by then. He had a certain way of, not only was he a great doodle-tonger in the way he attacked the notes, he had his own kind of sound, but he also knew how to get to the meat of the changes using tritone substitutions and utilizing a lot of the altered notes of the scales that we don't have to talk about. But he was a good guy to transcribe because it wasn't only connected to his sound, there was real meat in the transcriptions. Now, Miles, on the other hand, was so stylistic that his transcriptions, in a way, weren't as important because a lot of what he did was in the sound and the way he played the notes. Even if he didn't play a note that was a really hit note, he made it sound good. So Kenny Durham was really the guy for me to transcribe. Later, Woody Shaw, but I also transcribed some Hank Mobley, who's a wonderful saxophonist. I thought there were a lot of his lines lent themselves to the trumpet. So that was important. And I tried to learn the solos, sing along